dyslexia actually was first revealed in the 1600s, 1700s. They noticed some kids couldn't read words. And in the late 1800s, like 1896, a guy named Pringle Morgan found that kids could not remember words when he diagnosed them. He was from Scotland, I believe. And he had read an article by Hinchelwood, who had also noticed this. And Hinchelwood had coined the term congenital word blindness. These are kids who just did not seem to remember words. So this was a problem. And so it became clear in the 1900s there were certain kids who could not read, and they actually just thought that there was a word blindness. And actually they weren't far off, which you'll find out. In the 20s, Sam Morton studied this, had read the work of Pringle Morgan and Hinchelwood, and he found the same thing, congenital word blindness, and he hypothesized that these kids were reversing letters, that the right side of the brain was a mirror image of the left, and so these kids were using more right side of the brain, and that was causing the problem. Now, how he got there was incorrect, but he was correct that kids with dyslexia use the right side of the brain. Okay. So he then merged together with Anna Gillingham and Bessie Stillman, and the Orton-Gillingham program developed. And this program is the grandfather of learning disabilities, of dyslexia. Okay, it's crucial. Now, out on the coast in California, another group called Lindemood, Charles and Patricia Lindemood, were working with deaf kids, and they were working the auditory basis, and they said the problem really isn't visual, it's auditory. These kids cannot segment words. So we had these things going out on the coast, and that was much later. That was in the 60s that Patricia Lindemood and Charles Lindemood recognized that the problem was auditory. So these were two different programs working with dyslexia. Okay. Now, in 2002, all this became clear in the most important book written by Sally Shaywitz, Why Our Children Can't, no, not Why Our Children, Overcoming Dyslexia. And what she found was crucial, that first graders, when they read, the process works something like this. They'll see the information come in, and it goes back to the visual part of the brain. So they'll see it back. Then it shoots to the lower part of the ear to what's called the fusiform gyrus, or the word form area, whatever you want to call it. Back to the ear. And there's no picture initially, so then it shoots up to Broca's area. And the way I say with kids with dyslexia is that Broca's area is kind of broke, and we got to fix it, we got to get it going. But that's just to help you remember Broca's area. I wouldn't even say it with a kid, but to help you remember, I'll say, well, that's a problem. So it goes to Broca's area, and that allows the child to go, to sound it out. And as he sounds out the word at, it goes to the top of the ear, which is Wernicke's area, or the language area. So sounding, language. This also deals with grammar and some comprehension. This also deals with language and comprehension. So these work together. Here and here, they work together when you sound out a word. Now, once you sound it out, the word form area is stimulated, but doesn't necessarily take a picture. If you have no problems, while you are sounding it out and here, when you see the word several times, a picture forms in the word form area. Now, this is crucial, because now when you see something that comes to the back part of the brain, it's going to shoot to the ear, and rather than going to the front, you read. See how helpful that is? So you're not doing like our kids are doing. They see it, it goes to the back part of the brain, they have to sound it out. Okay? So what happens, you see it goes to the word form area, and once the word form area is going, you read. Good readers at the end of the first grade from brain scans are firing up the fusiform gyrus, or the word form area. Poor readers don't. They don't fire it up. What poor readers are doing is this, very inefficient. They see the word, comes through here, goes to the front, goes across to the opposite side of the brain, then it has to go back across the corpus callosum. Totally inefficient, and they're not firing the back part of the brain. So this is a problem, you know. That's why I get high school kids, their processing's no better than second graders, you know. Here's the exciting thing Dr. Shaywitz found. You can get that fusiform gyrus if you do a few things. One is do a systematic phonics program, in depth, like we have. Okay? That's one. Second, that you are working fluency, and you're doing things like pressure release and repeated readings daily. Okay? Third, that you do 20 minutes of reading a day, which we do in my program, at least 20 to 30. And fourth is you work on a few sight words as they come up. If you do those 4 things regularly, the repeated readings are crucial every day, the 20 minutes reading. She found that the backside of the brain fires. In the initial study, it took 8 months, it was in a classroom. But later on, we're finding it can happen much quicker. I believe it can happen as quick as a month to 2 months of intensive work. So, in summary, dyslexia, we started to notice that there was this problem with words in the turn of the century, like the 1900s, beginning of 1900s. It's thought primarily visual. But in California, they said, well, it's auditory, okay? So I studied both systems, and then I united the thoughts, the research of both systems. That's one of the things I did. Now, programs that focus on sight word often, okay? A wonderful program's Reading Recovery. If kids have this firing and just haven't read a lot, but this is firing and they don't have any trouble with phonics, they can tell about words, then, but it's dependent on a word form area that's firing. If your word form area is not firing, you must do a systematic phonics program. It's just crucial, okay? Now, where Orton was correct is, yes, they are using their right hemisphere more, okay? That's what the problem is. But the flipping of sounds is not a visual problem, it's a naming problem of the sounds. It's a language problem, okay? Okay, so for example, if you have a BD problem, you've probably never seen that, right, a BD problem? I'm just kidding. All right, now, say B. It's a line. B, line, circle. Say that again. B, B, line, circle. Say D. Your tongue is forming a circle in the middle. D. It's a little rounded. You feel that? D. You start with a circle and a line. Okay, so for B, if you're going to make the B, or if you see a line first, you form your mouth into a line. B, B, B. So we're using language to help get this. B, and it's a B. Okay. If it's your mouth forms around like D, it's a D. Once I've taught that, I will have a line. I'll have a line of make the circle first for the D's. And I'll have the child, what's your mouth doing here? Oh, line, B. Circle first. D, B, B. Make line first, so your mouth makes the line. B, D. Then I'll dictate the sounds. D. Is that a circle or a line, everybody? D. Do the circle first, that's a D. B. Is that a line or a circle? Line, right? Do the line first. So we're using language to help this system. BD is a language problem, okay? The same would work for P and QU, okay? Same would work with that because P, line first, Qu is a rounded mouth, so rounded mouth and that. This is more a line first. So that's an example. Orton was right, but the visual was not caused by the opposite side of the brain. It was a linguistic or language problem. And this is one way to solve that. This works, by the way. Just a quick review of that. So our issue in my program is all about firing the fusiform gyrus. That's what I'm all about. Once I fire the fusiform gyrus, the child starts logging words when they read. And now I can move the novels, and then when they miss a word that's not in their fusiform gyrus, I write it down on a sheet of paper. I write down the words that he doesn't have formed yet. And then before I read, I quickly review his words. This is once the child's reading, and we're ready to move to novels or whatever. I then start writing down the words. So I'm getting words that I'm having them log on the fusiform gyrus. I just keep a record of them. Before I read, we quickly read those words. Okay. So this program is all about stimulating the brain and making brain change. And that does happen with kids with dyslexia, even as late as high school. that you can fire this opposite side of the brain. Okay, it's pretty amazing that that can happen. Now, many people seem to think you can't learn to read after 5th, 6th grade. They'll say you just can't learn to read, or high school. Now, the reason they said that is there were no materials written for junior high, high school. Materials were written for 1st, 2nd grade, and kids got fed up and wouldn't learn to read. Second, there's a lot of studies that show if you're behind at 3rd, you're behind the rest of your life. It's just they didn't have an effective program that stimulated these parts of the brain and got the fusiform gyrus firing.